Okay, P.O.C. 7:39 p.m. And if that is perceptible through the audio, that is the sound of the state creating the amplified audible activity of plane engines rumbling. That is audible activity for purposes of monitoring. The state is present. So this is just like sirens are, indicative of ongoing stalking and indicative of ongoing monitoring conduct. Okay, it's 7:40 p.m. right now. Like I said, P.O.C. is ceaseless. I want to speak to P.O.C. while I was the pattern of conduct. That's what P.O.C. means. This is real-time documentation of federal group stalking and monitoring that the public entity that is the state of California is ceaselessly engaged in violation of 18 U.S.C. Section 42A, because the state is using communication devices which are a means of interstate commerce. In addition to planes and helicopters and cars and trucks, the state is using the channels of interstate commerce, the streets, the roadways, the freeways, the airspace. The state is using the internet. Okay, this is in violation of current federal law, and it is also in violation of that which I will enforce against the state of California, and what I advocate and what I have personally written based on my long-term documentation and being subject to this criminal system that has never been thoroughly addressed by federal legislation, which is not a coincidence because it is the government that is engaged in this criminal system. SIIS legislation, systematic infliction of inhumane suffering, that which is designed to address a public entity that is the government engaging in a criminal monitoring system in concert with the people of that state. That is a monitoring system. So contrary to what it's called, group stalking, understand group stalking is a monitoring system where an entity, a public entity, is monitoring an American citizen with communication devices, via communication devices, which everyone in California has: a cell phone, a laptop, a computer desktop, and all manner of different sort of electronic gadgets that they're using to monitor. And so with regard to P.O.C., that's my introduction, Erica Lorraine Spencer, P.O.C. I want to document I was present on the surveillance cameras at third-party facilitating venue Ontario Town Square, where I was sitting on the bench nearest the adjacent property at the address of 200 North Euclid Avenue. That's the vacant building that's currently under quote-unquote construction, and that status is a means of audible activity while I am present, and the state is monitoring and flying over and stalking and monitoring via police, fire, and ambulance, sounding their sirens to create ongoing audible activity, whereby third parties, all in relevant position and at that immediate venue, are engaged in group stalking. That is monitoring in concert, present in concert, and on behalf of that public entity that is monitoring with communication devices. Today, 5:45 p.m. Is when I leave the venue with third party Tracy Banks in her vehicle. I am seen walking with her to her car, license plate Ford Wendy Open Nancy 432. And this is where at 5:45 we leave that venue at about probably 5 minutes later, 5:50, arriving at the venue of Rite Aid, where I am also on the cameras inside of that venue. I reference the security camera at entrance. P.O.C. is underway. The entire route there, the state is flying over in airplanes. The state is engaging in sounding sirens while I am in the immediate presence of Tracy Banks, who was monitoring me, and I am with her, so she remains in relevant position the entire time, acting in concert with every other third party. No different the fact that I happen to know her name. She's engaged in the same exact behavioral pattern, the same exact criminal elements. And what I want to speak to is inside of the venue at Rite Aid. Upon exiting, we arrive at Rite Aid probably less than 10 minutes later, so that would be at approximately 5:55 to 6 p.m. where I'm at that venue, subject to ceaseless monitoring. Tracy Banks is not acting alone, monitoring with and on behalf of the state. Every third party in that parking lot and that venue inside of Rite Aid, customers and employees alike. This is a state system. This is how a state monitors an American citizen, and that is P.O.C. inside of the venue where I am at the pharmacy. And so we also walk across the parking lot. Okay, so documentation relevant to where I am, and relevant positioning with regard to monitoring as it is occurring outside of that venue. You're talking about a span, a radius, whereby monitoring is ongoing. And as we walk across the parking lot to third-party venue inside of the smoke shop, I I do not know the name of it, but I believe it's in the same plaza directly across. It's next to the gym that is closed down. It's in the same plaza along G Street in Euclid. And upon exit of that venue, that would be at approximately 6:15, between 6:10 to 6:15 p.m. We'll make it even larger. Between 6:10 to 6:20 p.m. I am on the cameras inside of that venue, subject to monitoring. A third-party group stalker behind me in pink sweats, a female. She is monitoring as I am in movement. So Tracy Banks is in relevant position. The employees in the store in that smoke shop are in relevant position. Ongoing activity occurring inside of this venue. I am showing how monitoring is ongoing. Okay, the state is present, flying over that parking lot, flying directly over the venue. This is P.O.C. while I'm on the cameras inside. And upon exit of that venue, Ontario Police in alignment at the traffic light at Euclid, heading in the direction which would be south on Euclid Avenue at the intersection of Euclid and G Street. At the immediate exit of that venue, of the smoke shop in that same plaza, where the Rite Aid is, walking toward Tracy Banks' vehicle, Ontario Police sound their vehicles for literally 1 second, create 1 to 2 seconds. That is the creation of audible activity while it is sitting at the traffic light. This is monitoring conduct as Ontario Police is creating audible activity while third parties in the parking lot sitting in their vehicles creating light activity in relevant position. While Tracy Banks is in my immediate presence, I am surrounded by third parties acting in concert. This is a network of communication devices. This is monitoring. This is federal group stalking and monitoring. Ontario Police present, the state present over the venue via aircraft. I want to speak to ongoing P.O.C. As I am in her vehicle and in traffic. Okay, this is ongoing P.O.C. and aircrafts. Planes are visibly flying over, swarming in the sky as a verbal argument begins between Tracy Banks and I. Understand, not only is what she's speaking legally relevant with regard to coming out of the mouth of a third party that is monitoring me, it is also occurring as audible activity for purposes of monitoring. So while engaged in federal group stalking and monitoring, she is waging a threat, and I will speak to what that is. She is engaging in creating audible activity and engaging in criminal obstruction. That's what that is with regard to additional acts of engaging in participation and waging a threat as a third party, acting in concert with the state while she is monitoring me, while she is en route driving on Euclid Avenue. On the traffic cameras, it would be seen from Euclid Avenue turning east onto Holt Boulevard. Ontario Police directly in alignment with lights on the vehicles as ongoing audible activity is occurring inside of the car. This is ongoing monitoring while she is also waging threats with her audible activity. So while she's monitoring. And the threat is with regard to this fictitious prosecution, a criminal case, Mary Wendy Victor 2000640. This is a fictitious prosecution, which I have spoken of before. This is that which is initiated upon documenting Ontario Police engaged in the pattern of conduct of federal group stalking and monitoring dating on January 13th, 2020. Jason Knighton with Ontario Police, officer number 80509 with Ontario Police officer L. Keys, Keys, L. Keys, engaged in federal group stalking and monitoring at the intersection of Vine and G Street, where I am engaged in documenting their criminal conduct, creating light activity on the vehicle. This is the case. I'm going to go through that, and then I'm going to go back to what the substance of what Tracy Banks is saying while she is monitoring and also engaging in a threat while doing so. Jason Knighton and L. Keys engaged in federal group stalking and monitoring, creating light activity on their police vehicles at Vine Street, adjacent to third-party facilitating venue 7-Eleven at Vine and G, where the state at the same time is flying over in an airplane over the 7-Eleven right next to me, which I captured an image of on that night of January 13, 2020. This is P.O.C. And while the police are present at that intersection right there in front of me, lights on the vehicles, on the police vehicles. So this is police presence creating light activity on their vehicles while I am walking to the vehicle at Fern and G Street where I was headed. And as I document the license plate of that Ontario Police vehicle engaged in the ongoing pattern of conduct, which is absolutely lawful conduct. Jason Knighton and L. Keys also previously documented engaged in the same exact pattern of conduct on January 7th, 2020. Refer to my podcast where I documented the P.O.C. at D Street, where they were engaged in creating substantial light activity with the fire department present, engaging in the same exact behavioral pattern that I continue to document to date while I was walking, engaging in stalking and engaging in monitoring on January 7th. Helicopters, airplanes, third-party stalking, creating light activity, literally parking on the sidewalk, using their hazard lights as I am walking, and a helicopter is flying over my head. This is all manner of P.O.C. January 7th, Jason Knighton and L. Keys engaging in that criminal system. Less than 1 week later, they engage in kidnapping while I am engaged in documenting their criminal conduct. That's criminal obstruction. That's the legal significance of what that is. Criminal obstruction is that which the public entity engages in upon any documentation, reporting, seeking to expose that public entity engaged in that pattern of conduct of federal group stalking and monitoring with communication devices. And that's what Jason Knighton and L. Keys were engaged in, waging false charges, false allegations, criminal obstruction, that's what that is, of obstructing an arrest, which they had no probable cause to arrest. There was absolutely no cause to arrest, where I'm taking a picture of the license plate and I'm taking a picture of the airplane that is hovering over the 7-Eleven on my right side, right before Jason Knighton attacks me. He is at the back of the police vehicle as I'm taking a picture of the license plate, in no way touching him, in no way even in his space. He literally has his back to me, and I am engaged in perfectly lawful conduct. He is not engaged in any investigation either. The form for his criminal conduct, which is what police engage in, a DUI checkpoint, a car accident. All right, this is how the state engages in malicious conduct of federal group stalking and monitoring, whereby they are engaging in the criminal elements: light activity, the first element, audible activity, visible activity, and or sensational activity. That's the second element. And relevant position, that is the literal stalking, being in the path, presence. And the Ontario Police on January 13th engaged in the criminal elements of monitoring as I document their license plate, as I document the planes flying over me. And Jason Knighton engages in attacking me. This is the legal significance under the pattern of conduct of federal group stalking and monitoring. It is not merely an assault and battery and a false arrest. This is a kidnapping by the public entity that is engaged in monitoring that targeted individual that is documenting the public entity engaged in that criminal pattern of conduct, engaged in this criminal system. And so I am kidnapped on January 13th. Jason Knighton and L. Keys engage in waging false allegations, which results in what is a fictitious prosecution, where the San Bernardino County District Attorney's Office engages in naming a fake person, that is F. Ramos, who is not anywhere on the California bar site. This is documentation that I gathered as of that date, because this entity is engaged in ongoing criminal concealment, criminal obstruction, trying to create events, create people, create information, literally manufacturing evidence, if you will, for purposes of ongoing concealment of its criminal system. And so upon being kidnapped and placed in jail at West Valley Detention Center illegally, that is an ongoing kidnapping, where I remained for a prolonged period of time. So this is an ongoing kidnapping on January 13th, resulting in a fictitious prosecution by the San Bernardino County District Attorney's Office, naming a fake person as the district attorney that initiated the case. And this is on the declaration of probable cause, because they did not use an actual an actual affidavit of probable cause. That is out of the mouth of Vanessa Rodriguez. Okay, the quote-unquote public defender engaged in this fictitious prosecution with Laura Alvarez, engaged in fictitious prosecution at the Rancho Cucamonga courthouse. And this is also contradicted because what she tells me is not what it actually occurs. When I am released from being kidnapped on January 28th and placed on probation in a fictitious case by Kimberly Appaloo, and engaging in a fictitious prosecution. This is all, understand, this is all the acts of criminal obstruction of justice by the public entity seeking to conceal its engagement in federal group stalking and monitoring. So you have false allegations, kidnapping by the police, and then the court system engaging in criminal obstruction via a fictitious prosecution, naming a fake DA, bringing fictitious charges, fake charges, okay? That is obstruction of arrest, where there was absolutely no arrest. There was no interference with any investigation. L. Keys and Jason Knighton were not engaged in any investigation. The third party, because that's what that was, the third party in the white truck in front of them, where they were engaged in the outward form of conducting a traffic stop, had already driven off. And this is also shown in the picture that I took of the license plate. There is no third party in front of that police vehicle. Jason Knighton is standing at the back of the police vehicle waiting for me to complete taking my picture, and then turns around and attacks me and engages in kidnapping me. There is no lawful arrest. There is no probable cause. And by the way, when a public entity is monitoring you, there is no such thing. The state is monitoring you, period. There is no reasonable suspicion. There is no probable cause. They are engaged in ongoing monitoring, and it is all criminal obstruction as you are engaged in documenting that public entity engaged in federal group stalking and monitoring. I am showing how a public entity engages in ongoing criminal conduct to silence that targeted individual. And this resulted in the court system engaging in that concerted criminal system. The officers of the court, the lawyers, the judges engaging in that, which is MWV 2000640. I was subject to an ongoing fictitious prosecution where there was Shannon engaging in a quote-unquote arraignment after 48 hours. I was arrested on January 13th. I was not arraigned until January 17th. This was brought to the attention, even though I should not have had to. I should not have had to bring it to the attention of Laura Alvarez. She is engaged in the intentional withholding of zealous advocacy on the part of the targeted individual, because she is intentionally engaging in the pattern of conduct of criminal obstruction of justice, seeking to conceal a public entity engaged in federal group stalking and monitoring. This is all which is designed to be addressed under my legislation that I have written in order to prosecute a public entity engaged in this criminal system, okay, under SIIS legislation. This is what the lawyers are engaged in. This is what the attorneys and the judges are engaged in concert with the police who engaged in kidnapping me, literally having no right whatsoever, okay, literally making up charges, literally making up a case, literally making up names who are initiating a case, okay. And so we're going to fast forward to Kyle Brody engaging in the trial readiness concert on February 7th, which was continued because the Ontario police engaged in continuous seizure of my property. So there is no way that the lawyers claiming to represent me, again, this is another intentional withholding of zealous advocacy by these public defenders who are intentionally engaging in this criminal conduct that is a fake case from the beginning to the end, designed to ultimately place me in a mental ward, which is what Lisa Rogan did on February 18th. Okay, so you have them holding on to my property, which precludes the ability for any discovery to go on, okay. And had I not brought that up, Vanessa Rodriguez never would have addressed it, okay. I called her. I documented everything that I have communicated with them. It is an email. It is in my documentation of calling them, and they're avoiding my calling. They're not communicating with me. This is all the intentional violation of their duties as officers of the court to the targeted individual. This is how the court system is engaging in that system of federal group stalking and monitoring. The court is a facilitating venue, by the way. This is why they're engaged in this. And so this is the corruption of the system, and I'm showing how it works. And so on February 7th, Kyle Brody, engaging in a fictitious prosecution, calls himself holding a trial readiness conference, which was continued because I demanded that they recognize the fact that my property was illegally held by Ontario police after I was released on January 28th. So I do not have my documentation, which I fully intended to present in this fake case against Ontario police officers Jason Knight and L. Keys, because I fully intended to demonstrate how they were engaged in a pattern of conduct of ongoing group stalking and monitoring. And this is showing the police that I have been documenting since 2018. And this is ongoing documentation that I had in my property that the police held on to after I was released, and they had no right to do so. And so there was no discovery that was conducted, despite the fact that the lawyers, and on that day, Laura Alvarez was absent again. Okay, violation of her duty to me. As a public defender, intentional withholding of zealous advocacy of the targeted individual. This is what this is. This is all occurring under facts of a pattern of conduct of federal group stalking and monitoring by a public entity, okay? And so this is February 14th that we return at Kyle Brody at the Rancho Cucamonga courthouse, who again engaging in a fictitious prosecution. In any capacity participating is an ongoing kidnapping. They're acting pursuant to the pattern of conduct of federal group stalking and monitoring. They are legally and civilly going to be held liable for that and to be prosecuted for that. This is how you prosecute a public entity, and this is how that system operates, where a public entity is engaged in what this is, which is the system of group stalking and monitoring, which is a violation of federal law, never addressed under federal legislation. And so my ongoing documentation is showing how step by step the system operates to ultimately silence the target individual. That is documenting everything that that public entity is engaged in, including criminal obstruction. And so Kyle Brody on February 14th sets the trial date. In that courtroom, I am on camera in the courtroom communicating to the judge that Laura Alvarez, and I also communicate with her in emails stating the fact that she needs to zealously advocate on my behalf. And I tell the judge, also Kyle Brody, that I fully intend for Laura Alvarez to represent me in the trial that he scheduled for February 18th, the following Tuesday, and that Laura Alvarez had not been abiding by her duties owed to me as the public defender, as an attorney, claiming to and obligated to represent my interests zealously, okay, without any conflict. Okay, you're talking about a public entity engaging in P.O.C. She is inherently conflicted, okay. So I am just speaking as to how the system works and how the corruption of that system, how it is manifest, okay. And this is what I clearly communicated to Kyle Brody. He sets the trial date. I arrive at court on February 18th, before a different judge, by the way. So it's going before Shannon, and then on February 7th, February 14th, it's before a different officer of the court, Kyle Brody, and then he sets the trial date, not before him, before a different judge, which is Lisa Rogan. The first time I'm ever seeing her face, the first time I'm ever encountering her. And let me be clear, the court hearing was concluded. I stayed till the end. I even waited to speak with Laura Alvarez, who engaged in assaulting me inside of the court, and contrary to her assaulting me and raising her voice, which is monitoring. Understand, they're monitoring inside of the court. She's yelling and engaging in an assault, and this is on camera inside of the courtroom because she is frustrated because I am speaking to her repeated absenteeism in violation of my rights. She is not zealously advocating on my behalf, and she engages in raising her voice and yelling, refusing to speak to me about the case as well. These are all violations of her duties owed to me, and this is intentional withholding of zealous advocacy. Okay, this is a violation under federal law, which I have designed to prosecute a public entity engaging in the system. This is all criminal obstruction, by the way. Okay, so this is February 14th. I arrived to court expecting a trial, having communicated with Laura Alvarez and Vanessa Rodriguez before this trial, and again, their repeated refusal to communicate with me. Not one email sent before, except for Laura Alvarez, who emails me on February 17th, the day before the scheduled trial, and this is speaking to, and this is evidence of that which I am have already established and spoken to, the fact that there was a scheduled trial set by Kyle Brody for February 18th. Laura Alvarez sends an email on February 17th stating her intentions contrary to what I clearly stated. She is bound by what I have stated that I will do. I said, I'm not going to get on the stand. You're going to represent my case, and I'm not getting on the stand, and I have a right to not do so if you have any understanding whatsoever under the state and federal constitutions. In violation of that, but regardless of that, whatever she states, understand that this is evidence of the fact that a trial was scheduled for the next day, February 18th, and this is also documented communication by Laura Alvarez, the appointed public defender. The next day, February 18th, when I arrive at the Rancho Cucamonga courthouse, expecting a trial, having every reason to expect a trial, having there been present the entire time to the conclusion of the hearing, and I put that in quotations because it is a fictitious case, the Kyle Brody, who said it, he's off the bench. Laura Alvarez is avoiding speaking to me, remaining in the courtroom after the deputy throws me out, after she raises her voice at me and engages in assault as though she's going to hit me because I'm bringing up the fact that she is repeatedly absent when I have court hearings, which is why Vanessa Rodriguez was present. They are both engaged in federal group stalking and monitoring and criminal obstruction of that targeted individual, myself, who is documenting that public entity engaged in federal group stalking and monitoring. February 18th, there is no trial. The court is engaged in monitoring me. Lisa Rogan is not only monitoring me in concert with all the third parties that filled the gallery on that day, including Tracy Banks, acting with Laura Alvarez, acting with Lisa Rogan, acting with every third party and the police who were present, more than one police department present, the district attorney's office right next to that courtroom where I'm at, the state engaging in directing impossible light activity onto the surfaces inside of that courtroom. The P.O.C. is continuous inside of that court, and the moment that I step in, Lisa Rogan on the bench waiting for me to arrive. Even on the schedule that is printed on the wall, it said a trial. As Lisa Rogan calls me up, literally waiting for me to walk in. I walk in at around 9:15 a.m. on cameras inside of that venue, and I believe that it's Department R11 at the Rancho Cucamonga courthouse. Lisa Rogan does not hold any such trial. She engages in denying me a trial, and let me speak to what she says. Not only is it audible activity, as she is monitoring me, she is engaged in two things. First of all, criminal obstruction, kidnapping, and also criminal obstruction via defamation, criminal defamation. That is defamation serving the criminal purpose of perpetuating and continuing a public entity's engagement in this incredibly threatening system of monitoring an American citizen. And this is why she engages in what is legally kidnapping under the facts of the P.O.C. of federal group stalking and monitoring. She has no legal right whatsoever. Not only is this a fictitious prosecution, okay, it is also that which is a matter of criminal defamation. And in that courtroom, she states that because Erica Spencer is unlikely to submit to commitment outside of custody, she's going to take me into custody. So this is quote unquote on the record that she is engaged in criminal defamation, that is slander, and it is also libel. It is on the documentation that I have with regard to her immediately taking me into custody. That is a kidnapping, and it is criminal defamation that Lisa Rogan engaged in on February 18th. There was no trial, and that was the 30th day. I did in no way waive my right to a trial under both state and federal constitutions. I was kidnapped, taken into custody, taken to the West Valley Detention Center on February 18th, and on the next day, subject to ongoing monitoring the entire way. The Rancho Cucamonga courthouse, the deputies inside of that court engaged in federal group stalking and monitoring, literally having a blinking light in the hallway while they amplify activity inside of that, inside of those cells down there, while they are standing behind me. This is on camera inside of the court, okay? While they are standing behind me, this is Deputy Morales, Deputy Woolsey, deputies standing in a line telling me to face the wall while they are literally standing behind with a blinking light. That's light activity, by the way. They're in relevant position standing in a line behind me while they are monitoring. Okay, this is very peculiar, weird conduct. It is on camera inside of their own facility, and it is P.O.C., by the way. Okay, all three elements are present, and they're engaged in monitoring while I am subject to ongoing kidnapping. The legal substance of that, under the legislation that I have created and designed to prosecute a public entity engaged in this system, is that while you are monitoring any targeted individual that is subject to the public entity that is ceaselessly monitoring and engaging in group stalking everywhere that you are, including while you are in the court, including while you are kidnapped inside of that facility, they are not only criminally liable and to be prosecuted for kidnapping, but also for federal group stalking and monitoring and criminal facilitation of that criminal system. And that is what they are all engaged in on their own cameras inside of that facility. This is February 18th, where Tracy Banks is also present, engaging in the P.O.C. of federal group stalking and monitoring and criminal obstruction of justice, acting with Laura Alvarez, aiming her phone on me, okay, while she is engaging in relevant positioning as I walk into the courtroom, and Lisa Rogan immediately engages in kidnapping me and denying me a trial in a fictitious prosecution, which is legal abuse of the criminal process. That is the violation of law. That is what that violation is under the legislation that I have designed. This is that which is not addressed under federal law. They are monitoring with communication devices. They are currently, and that entire episode of P.O.C. Is in violation of current existing law, 18 U.S.C. Section 42A, but SIIS legislation is designed to address every criminal tactic that this public entity engages in, which is also demonic activity. It is malicious maliciously engaged in. Criminal activity in the court, criminal activity by the police, which the court is facilitating, and it is all a means of silencing that targeted individual to depict them as suffering a mental illness. It is for the purpose of criminal defamation. Criminal defamation exceeds civil defamation, which is merely pecuniary harm. Criminal defamation is that which is designed to perpetuate and continue a public entity's engagement in criminal monitoring. Okay, to conceal the existence of that system, to conceal the fact that that public entity is monitoring and engaging in facilitation with and in concert with the people of that state. That's what the system is engaged in, and that is what I have designed legislation to address. And that is what Lisa Rogan engaged in. That is what Tracy Banks was engaged in on February 18th when I did not get a trial. This is February 18th, the arrest date January 13th. I did not waive any trial whatsoever, and the court has absolutely no right to take me into custody either. That's a kidnapping by Lisa Rogan while she's engaged in criminal defamation. So I am taken into custody at West Valley, immediately transferred to Glen Helen, subject to federal group stalking and monitoring the entire time in the facilities, all of it documented on the cameras inside of each of those facilities. And this is ongoing documentation while I remain subject to a kidnapping and ongoing federal group stalking and monitoring. The people of the state of California are the inmates monitoring with the state, continuously flying over, amplifying the sound of planes and helicopters while I am in those facilities. Okay, ongoing amplification of audible activity while I am inside of those facilities, subject to monitoring the entire time while I am kidnapped. Having no right whatsoever, having no jurisdiction whatsoever, literally creating a case, literally creating and making up and manufacturing information and hearing and people to perpetuate, to engage in this crime. And so what I want to speak to today, December 23rd, 2020, while I was subject to that kidnapping that I documented on September 25th, where the state is engaged in citing a warrant that does not exist in a fictitious case, after I was denied a trial in that fictitious case that I fully was prepared to have, because I want to, understand that the presentation of my evidence is a means of prosecuting the state of California. That is evidence, that is documentation that the state intends to conceal. Okay, my video, my audio documentation, my ongoing documentation of every police officer engaged in the criminal elements of monitoring, engaged in the very group stalking conduct in San Bernardino County, in Los Angeles County, in Orange County. I've been documenting it for over 2 years now. And so I presented all of this evidence. And this is also an email documentation that I provided to Laura Alvarez and Vanessa Rodriguez. They had all of this, supposedly engaged in discovery, right? And I had no trial. No trial whatsoever. And again, Laura Alvarez emailing me on February 17th. Okay, trial was set, and her very email is additional evidence demonstrating that there was no, as Kara Hudson engaging in kidnapping and federal group stalking and monitoring, and Misha Moss, bar number 297372, engaging in the same fictitious prosecution, citing the fact that Lisa Rogan stated that there was a doubt declaration, which is defamation. She's speaking to some sort of doubt that I cannot withstand trial. Understand, this is P.O.C. Okay, Lisa Rogan, the first time I encountered her for less than 5 minutes, taking me into custody, not giving me a trial, and she is the third officer of the court engaging in entertaining this fictitious prosecution, MWV 200000640. This is that which Lisa Rogan engaged in, and Kara Hudson and Misha Moss are engaging in and picking it up after I was kidnapped from Economy Inn, third-party facilitating venue, at 2301 South Euclid Avenue, where I engaged in substantial documentation of the state stalking, flying directly over my room by aircraft, flying over by helicopter. The state engaged in ongoing stalking. This is already documented and published. Okay, this is an ongoing POC. After I was released from being kidnapped in the middle of the night on April 22nd, after holding up signs inside of that facility stating the fact that I have already initiated prosecution against the state of California, which is engaged in evading a service of process. That is the civil court, the San Bernardino County Superior Court. That is the Court of Appeals, 4th District, 2nd Division. denying a basic fundamental right of service of process. This is also that which is addressed under SIIS legislation. That is the criminal abridgment of the fundamental right to access the courts. This is also why it is a federal case where a public entity is engaged in federal group stalking and monitoring, not only because they're using communication devices, but because that public entity is in every way seeking to obstruct the targeted individual's right to their day in court to prosecute that public entity, in every way seeking to obstruct that documentation. And so as I am holding up signs. This is while I'm kidnapped from February 18th until April 22nd. Holding up signs speaking to the fact that I have already initiated prosecution, my civil case against not only Bill and Wags, who was engaged in P.O.C., for stealing my car, criminal obstruction, theft of your property, harassment, criminal threats, acting in concert with the police that are the state, stealing my car via a third-party group stalker engaged in the P.O.C. And when I go to the tow yard, the state present flying over that tow yard. The state appears by the police present by criminal summoning of Bill and Wags, lying, stating that I'm doing drugs inside of the car. This is all documented. I will publish that audio documentation. It is all P.O.C. from beginning to end. Okay, so this is that which is signs. I held up signs inside of the jail while I was subject to this kidnapping, stating that Lisa Rogan engaged in defamation. I'm sitting in the mental ward at West Valley after being transferred from West Valley on February 18th to Glen Helen Rehabilitation Center on February 19th. And then upon being targeted by the mental health specialist at Glen Helen, targeting me after absolutely no event whatsoever. This is how they engage in literally manufacturing information. Do you want to speak to me? And I clearly state, no, I don't want to speak to you, and I don't even know why you're asking me why I want to speak to you. Understand, this is not only audible activity, but it is also criminal defamation. As I clearly communicate to this mental health specialist at Glen Helen, again on the facility cameras. They are not only engaged in kidnapping, they're engaged in criminal defamation, they're engaged in federal group stalking and monitoring in the facility at Glen Helen Rehabilitation Center. This is March 5th. This is ongoing criminal defamation by this quote-unquote mental health specialist working in concert with the state to defame me, to keep me kidnapped, and engage in seeking to label me as suffering from some mental disease or mental illness that I do not suffer from. I am engaged in documenting a public entity that is blatantly engaged in the ongoing pattern of conduct, which my documentation has already established. Okay, and so this is March 6th, the next day after this, after they engage in targeting via mental health specialists. Communicating to West Valley, also acting in concert. So this is criminal continuation of kidnapping. This is ongoing criminal defamation, who is relying on the criminal conduct of this mental health specialist who has, contrary to what I clearly communicated, no, I don't want to talk to you. I don't even know why you are asking me if I want to talk to you. This is out of the blue that they're doing this. I'm in general population. Okay, amongst the rest of them engaged in, subject to ongoing kidnapping. And while they are monitoring me, they're engaged in targeting me, seeking to have me transferred from general population to the mental ward. And so this is March 6th, where I am abruptly transferred from Glen Helen Rehabilitation to West Valley to the mental ward, having no right and no basis whatsoever. This is an ongoing kidnapping, and this is criminal defamation by that public entity that is engaged in ceaseless monitoring the entire time. Okay, and so this is stemming from Lisa Rogan's conduct on February 18th. Okay, where I never got a trial, and I remain subject to a kidnapping, having no trial, being arrested on January 13th under false allegations, no DA, okay, arraigned well after 48 hours, okay, this is ongoing P.O.C. is what I'm describing. And so March 6th, I'm transferred to West Valley, placed into a mental ward, and I remain there illegally. No court date. April 1st comes and goes. There is no court. There is, and by the way, even if there were a court date, you are talking about a fictitious prosecution. This is criminal activity by the court, specifically the Rancho Cucamonga courthouse. Okay, but I'm speaking to that. They don't even give a court date. I don't even go to court. I just remain in the mental ward, subject to ongoing P.O.C., subject to ongoing criminal activity by the deputies and the inmates in that facility. monitoring ongoing inside of that facility and on the cameras. The state engaging in directing impossible light activity inside of the jail. Okay, just like I'm showing you how the state is engaged in stalking with light by a literal fake sun, the state aiming light inside of the units, moving it in all manner of directions on the walls, on the grounds, inside of the cells, which the true sun is never doing. Not only is the actual sun not over West Valley, it is not directly in front of that wall, directing light horizontally in through these small window slots, if you're familiar with West Valley Detention Center. There are no windows on the ceilings, but there is a small slot of windows on the wall that is opposite the cells, and so the state is directing light horizontally inside of the unit, moving light in all manner of direction, even into the depths of the cell, targeting where I am located in the cell, and this is P.O.C. And so April 22nd, after I engage in holding up signs while I remain kidnapped inside of the cell, the state, and I am very much summarizing this because there are a whole plethora of facts and criminal conduct that is ongoing in between this, but I want to get to the legally relevant and substantive threats that the third-party group stalker Tracy Banks communicated while she's monitoring me today on December 23rd, 2020. And so as I engage in holding up signs inside of that facility while I remain kidnapped and subject to federal group stalking and monitoring, they removed me from unit 15D as in dog, and they moved me to isolation. You're moved to isolation when you've engaged in some violation. You've done something wrong. You've attacked someone. You've done something. So they move you to isolation. They moved me to isolation after I was attacked on camera, and I'm using the cameras inside of the facility, documenting ongoing P.O.C. I'm literally pointing out the elements of criminal monitoring by the inmates and by the deputies. They moved me to isolation after I am attacked on camera. This is a means of concealment. That's criminal obstruction by the deputies, who are seeking to conceal the fact that I am documenting criminal conduct inside of that jail at West Valley. And while I'm inside of a mental ward, that's criminal defamation. Okay, they're concealing that. They moved me to isolation. I was in residential house number 2 on camera inside of that little mini unit as well. And this is where I am in that isolated unit. They removed me from the mental ward to area 9, and I use the camera inside of that area as well, and you get a close-up of what my sign says. I'm identifying myself as Erica Lorraine Spencer, my California bar number 306971, the fact that it is an entirely fictitious prosecution, and I'm naming the fake name that is on the declaration of probable cause, and I'm naming the fake name F. Ramos that is on the complaint, which is a fictitious complaint, and as I'm holding up these signs, this is around April 20th, April 21st, and this is documented inside of the facility after they removed me from the mental ward to area 9 into isolation. Okay, and I am pointing out how it is defamation, the fact that I'm there, and that I am illegally being kept there, and the fact that I have already initiated my civil suit against the state of California for group stalking and monitoring, and the state is engaged in ongoing evasion of service of process. The fact that I am there is the criminal conduct of the state, having no right to keep me whatsoever, and the fact that I never got a trial in this case number MWV 2000640. You have a third party. Well, actually, I'm sorry, the officers of the court are not third parties. They are state actors. That is the state acting directly. Engages in representing herself as someone who is asking for my consent. This is on the cameras, and it is recorded because she comes and visits me and asks me for consent while I am subject to isolation in Unit 9. I am escorted on camera, speaking to her, and inside of that jail on the cameras, at the visitor section with the telephones, and all of that is recorded. And I am again stating to, I believe her name is Zahara, and she is an officer of the court whose bar number I do not have on hand right now, but that is also documented conduct. Criminal, not only is it monitoring, okay, she is engaging in fictitious prosecution, stating that she wants to represent me because they're trying to reinitiate some court hearing in a fake case. And I am telling her, first of all, there was never any trial, and that there is no recommencement or continuation of that after I've been subject to an illegal confinement. That is not how the law works, and that is not the process whatsoever. at all. And while Zahara is engaged in monitoring, and I engage in telling her that I am not giving her any consent to quote unquote represent me in that fake case. This is P.O.C. In the background. This is a recorded this is a recorded conversation inside of West Valley while I'm kidnapped and the state is engaged in ongoing monitoring. Zahara says fine, then she gets upset because I am not abiding by what she wants me to say, which is which would actually would be a way of me conceding and providing, if I were ignorant of my rights, if I were ignorant of the fact that I did not know that I was entitled to a trial within 30 days for a misdemeanor charge, which again, it is a fake case, but I am abiding by this. The state represents an incredible threat that is bringing a fake case against me, and they engage in criminal abuse of their devices through criminal activity in the courts and the criminal use of things such as what the police engaged in on September 25th, citing a warrant in a fake case. These are the criminal devices. I'm sorry, they're not criminal devices. These are devices of law enforcement. They engage in using criminally to engage in kidnapping, citing the same fake case. Okay, that's what they did on September 25th. Zahara is on camera. Zahara's conversation with me is recorded inside of West Valley. This is on or around September 21st, and then I do not abide by her. I abide by her request that I give her any consent. I do not know who this attorney is, stating and referring to this fake case where I did not ever get a trial, and I'm just thrown into jail on February 18th, remaining until April 22nd. Zahara's conversation ends with, okay, fine then, and there was never any agreement. There was no agreement with me. I did not consent to anybody appearing on my behalf. And by the way, Laura Alvarez is the one who was appointed to be the public defender, by the way, not communicating with me from the beginning of this fake case. Okay. And then Zahara comes out of the blue stating that she's asking for my consent to represent me in this fake case, which I do not provide her any consent. And I fully remind her, excuse me, there was no trial. This is an illegal confinement. This is a kidnapping. Right? And I am not going to provide you some consent to continue this criminal activity by the court. That's essentially what I am stating to her while I'm being monitored, by the way. And so that's the conversation inside of West Valley. And so I am brought back to the cell. I'm in isolation. Okay. They're keeping me off the cameras in the facility because I'm holding up signs speaking to and revealing the fact that I'm kidnapped and the fact that I am being subject to defamation, being placed in a mental ward after having no trial. And you're talking about a charge of PC 148, by the way, PC 148A1, which is obstruction of arrest. Not only is that a false charge, but let me give you a clue here. How do you jump from obstruction of arrest to commitment in a mental ward? I'm going to tell you how it is the pattern of conduct for criminal obstruction by that public entity that is seeking to obstruct justice and conceal the fact that that public entity in the court is the state. Understand, the police, that is the state. The same state that's stalking and monitoring right now with sirens in the background are the same ones that engage in kidnapping and waging false allegations. And then the court continues and facilitates that criminal conduct by engaging in a fictitious prosecution and engaging in kidnapping and criminal defamation by placing you in a mental ward. And that's exactly what happened. I'm placed back into the cell after denying Zahara what she wants, which is conceding to any sort of fictitious trial. You're going to have to kidnap me, which is what they did on September 25th. And so I'm released from being kidnapped, by the way. There is no court date set. I didn't consent to anything. I am released in the middle of the night in Fontana, and I call Tracy Banks. She picks me up. I am subject to P.O.C. the entire time. The state surrounding the Fontana center where they dropped me off, and the state is present, loitering in relevant position by planes, light activity outside of that center in Fontana, monitoring the entire way, even en route by the deputy that's driving. Monitoring does not stop. The P.O.C. is continuous, even as I'm being released from being kidnapped, and there is no court date, okay? There is no trial. Not only is it a fictitious case, I am literally just released, period. Okay. And so this is also on the courts. They literally come to the cell while I'm in isolation. Do you want to be released? What are you talking about? You don't have a right to, this is essentially the conversation. While monitoring is ongoing, by the way. Okay. And so they release me in the middle of the night, and I'm picked up by Tracy Banks on April 22nd. So I am kidnapped from February 18th until April 22nd. Okay. P.O.C. is continuous, and I have continued to document, as you will see, that which I began publishing online in July of 2020. I began publishing it on the internet. I've been documenting the state engaging in what is federal group stalking and monitoring since since May of 2018. And so I began publishing it in July of 2020 on YouTube. I began getting online on the social platforms, Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, Tumblr, and I am publishing my ongoing documentation of P.O.C., that which I have gathered in all manner, audio, video, pictures. I am engaged in an ongoing publishing because I am speaking to what the state is ceaselessly engaged in after releasing me from being kidnapped, and then engaging in perpetuating this. And it's an ongoing threat. That's what it is. Holding this fake case over your head to engage in repeated kidnapping, because that's what it is. There is no case. There was no lawful arrest. It was P.O.C. that Jason Knighton and El Keys were engaged in. Not only did I document them on January 7th, they kidnapped me on January 13th while they're and the kidnapping is P.O.C., by the way. But I'm literally documenting them engaged in monitoring me, the airplane flying over right next to me while they're using light activity on their vehicle. It is P.O.C. They're monitoring me. Okay. And so, you have word of mouth. Tracy Banks engaging in verbalizing a threat. Oh, you have a court date. That does not make it any more official, okay, whatsoever. But you have a third party, and understand the legal substance of that. This is a third party that is monitoring you while I'm inside of and I put that in quotes because I'm monitored inside of that private residence at Woodside Senior Apartments. The monitored and documented P.O.C. the entire time that I was present, the state flying over by planes and helicopters at that private residence, the state placing its fake son directly over the apartment at that private residence, the state engaged in ongoing stalking in the same manner, the same identical behavioral pattern. It is P.O.C. at Woodside Senior while I remained at that private residence. And P.O.C. is ceaseless. And so I want to get to being released from that kidnapping, that episode of kidnapping, being released. No court date, no communication. They just let me out. And this is not a coincidence because I'm holding up signs inside of the jail where they're engaged in ongoing P.O.C. of monitoring me in concert with the inmates and the deputies. Okay, so they released me as I'm holding up signs to that fact, identifying myself, identifying the case that's fake, identifying the names of the criminals, the officers of the court entertaining this fake case, which is all criminal obstruction by a public entity engaged in federal group stalking and monitoring. While I am at third-party facilitating venue Economy Inn, the state engaged in flying over by planes and helicopters, stalking by police, stalking by their presence and using their sirens to monitor. While I engaged in heavily documenting my presence at that venue, the police engaged in kidnapping me again on September 25th, citing a warrant in this identical same case. And this is September 25th, well after February 18th, where I was denied a trial. Okay, I sat in jail, and then I sat in a mental ward from March 6th until April 22nd, just released in the middle of the night. All right. And by word of mouth, I'm told, oh, you have to go to court by a third party who's monitoring me. This is P.O.C. OK, and by that verbal passing on of knowledge of a criminal case. And it's interesting that she's so Tracy, and by she, I mean Tracy Banks, is so knowledgeable about the ongoing process of this fictitious prosecution, where the attorneys who are supposedly representing me, that is Laura Alvarez and Vanessa Rodriguez, engaged in outright denial of information. They absolutely refused to communicate with me. They did not communicate anything with me, and this is intentional. But Tracy Banks is engaged in word of mouth, and which is a threat. Understand that. While you're monitoring me and you're also engaging in a threat, she's speaking on behalf of the state that is engaged in kidnapping me. All right, via a fictitious prosecution and using criminal devices such as a warrant, which is what Ontario police officers Morris and Corporal Kemp engaged in on September 25th. While P.O.C. was heavily documented, which I published on my podcast, and I published it on a Facebook Live video moments before they engaged in kidnapping me, citing a warrant that does not exist in a fictitious prosecution that I never got a trial in, and where I was placed in a mental ward. Okay, and this is September 25th, where I remain illegally confined, that's kidnapping, while subject to ongoing monitoring from September 25th, stripped of my clothing, placed into handcuffs, after I didn't refuse to sign a citation. If you are citing a warrant in a fictitious case, but we won't even go into, I've already established it's a fictitious case. If you are citing you have a warrant in an existing case where you did not even get a trial within the 30 days, and there is no substantial cause for that or excuse for that whatsoever, there is no warrant. But not only that, you're citing a warrant, and you take me to the West Valley Detention Center to sign a citation for PC 148A1. Why would you have me sign a citation if you're citing a warrant in an existing criminal case where I have already been arraigned, I have already had the trial readiness conference, I've already had the pre-trial before Kimberly Appaloo, all of these judges, okay? This has already been quote-unquote litigated up until the point of the fake trial that never occurred on February 18th. I was just kidnapped and summarily taken into custody and ultimately placed in the mental ward, which was the aim at the first in the first instance. This is why you engage in a fictitious prosecution. But I want to be clear. September 25th, they tried to force me to sign a citation for this same charge. I did not sign that citation, in the same way that I did not concede to Zahara asking me to give her consent to represent me in some fake case where I didn't even get a trial. And she refuses to acknowledge the fact, and she keeps over speaking me because she doesn't want to address the fact that there was no trial. This is exactly what Misha Moss did on October 14th. With regard to the refusal to sign the citation, okay, so you're going to take me into custody. All right, this is kidnapping. First of all, it's kidnapping. They're taking me from Economy Inn. Okay, that's the kidnapping. But I want to be clear. They're citing a warrant for having the right to arrest me, which is criminal abuse of law enforcement devices. This is that which is addressed under SIIS legislation. This is how a public entity engages in criminal obstruction of justice to conceal the fact that it is engaged in federal group stalking and monitoring. All of these criminal acts of criminal obstruction are occurring under the pattern of conduct of group stalking and monitoring by a public entity. That's the legal relevance of everything that the state is engaged in. Okay, so I'm kidnapped from Economy Inn by Ontario Police. And then they take me to the West Valley to sign a citation, which I want to be clear, that is in direct contradiction of your citing a warrant in an existing case, by the way. Okay, so and that's just being aware of your rights. Understand the state is engaged in this targeting system to those who have no idea about their rights and no understanding of the law whatsoever. And so you may very well engage in signing a citation. And this is a way of them having some sort of legitimacy for having an entirely fake case. Okay, if I would have signed the citation, they would have released me, and that would have been some means whereby they can state it's not a fake case. Okay, we had her sign a citation. We'll go about that route. I am fully engaged in documenting the ways in which this entity is monitoring and seeking to engage in criminal obstruction of the fact that they are monitoring, and they are literally forced to engage in kidnapping, and that's what they did. I did not sign the citation. Why would I sign a citation that I originally refused to sign on January 13th? That's why they took me into jail. That's why I was arraigned. Well after January 13th. On the 17th, I was arraigned. Okay? This is after I've already refused to sign the same identical citation for PC 148A1, after I've already been arraigned, had a pretrial, a trial readiness conference, and a set trial date, but you want me to sign a citation for it. And this is while you are citing a warrant in this case. Okay, number one. Okay, it is a fake case. Okay, so, and in addition to that, not only do I refuse to sign the citation, they are going to foreseeably take me into jail, because you're talking about an entity that cannot just concede the fact that it's a fake case. So they take, this is, egregious, desperate, unheard of criminal activity by the state, right? This is the jail. This is the police. This is the Rancho Cucamonga court. This is including the San Bernardino Superior Court, the Appellate Court, and the California Supreme Court engaged in evasion of service of process. Okay, everything that the Superior Court does to prevent that targeted individual from prosecuting that public entity, it is criminally liable for everything reasonably foreseeable to occur from that denial of your right to prosecute that public entity, and it is reasonably foreseeable that that public entity that is engaged in this criminal system is going to engage in extreme manners of seeking to confine you, kidnap you, engage in ongoing monitoring while you're in their facilities, in their courtroom. And this is all reasonably foreseeable. They're seeking to conceal that fact. This is why you engage in blatant denial of service of process. I mean, that's not a minor thing. That is a fundamental right. Okay, that is a blatant criminal violation, and that is what I have designed to be addressed under SIIS legislation. So anyway, this is precipitating from the Superior Court's criminal conduct, from the Court of Appeals criminal conduct, from the California Supreme Court's criminal conduct. And so I refused to sign the citation on September 25th. They take me and keep me, and this is where Deputy Sharp, Deputy Dominguez, and Deputy Bellamy at the West Valley Detention Center engage in taking me into a back cell off of camera in the booking cell with the rest of the people, and engage in placing me in handcuffs, placing me on my knees, cutting off my clothes, and placing me in the clothing for the mental ward. Okay, they are seeking to continue that same kidnapping, the same circumstances under which I was kidnapped before, and that is placing me into the mental ward after refusing to sign a citation, after being kidnapped by Ontario police, who stated that they had a warrant in this case where I was already denied a trial on February 18th, and I did not waive my right to a trial on that date. Lisa Rogan engaged in criminal defamation, and she engaged in federal group stalking monitoring. She's monitoring me, she's criminally defaming me, and she's kidnapping me. And this is that which has already been quote unquote litigated. So you're having me trying to force me to sign a citation, and then you cut off my clothes and forcibly place me into the mental ward, where I remain kidnapped inside of that facility at West Valley in Area 9, and then transferred to Area 15, the mental ward. This is criminal defamation, this is ongoing kidnapping, and this is federal group stalking and monitoring that was ceaselessly underway. The state engaging in directing impossible light activity into that unit every single day in all manner of directions, including into the depths of the cell, which again, the sun, the true sun, is never directing any light into that unit, in any unit at West Valley, first of all, let alone Area 9 and Area 15, where I was held illegally, subject to ongoing kidnapping. I was subject to federal group stalking and monitoring while I was kidnapped inside of West Valley Jail. And this is upon refusal to sign a citation, upon them citing a warrant in a fictitious prosecution. Do you understand this is criminal activity ongoing? All right. And this is after being released in the middle of the night, April 22nd, after not having a trial. Okay. And so we are going to fast forward after I'm kidnapped from September 25th until December 4th, 2020, where West Valley, after I am holding up a large sign, speaking to the ongoing kidnapping and defamation by Kara Hudson, by Misha Moss, citing the fact that there was some quote-unquote declaration of doubt, which never occurred. Kyle Brody set trial on February 14th. He set trial for February 18th. Again, recall, Laura Alvarez emailed me on February 17th stating that she was going to have me sit on the stand for trial on February 18th. There was no doubt declaration. This is the manufacturing of information. This is the criminal conduct of the court, the Rancho Cucamonga court. But let me be clear, this is a state system. Rancho Cucamonga courthouse is demonstrating what the state is engaged in. Okay, Ontario police are demonstrating what the police are engaged in. This is a state system that is in operation in the state of California. It is federal group stalking and monitoring, and this is criminal obstruction under the pattern of conduct of monitoring with communication devices, seeking to conceal that, where the targeted individual is documenting it. Okay, and so I am released from being kidnapped and transferred to Arrowhead Regional Medical Center. That is under SIIS legislation, the criminal continuation of a kidnapping while I am subject to ceaseless monitoring at that medical center where they have no right whatsoever. They are continuing a kidnapping. They are continuing federal group stalking and monitoring inside of that medical center. It is on camera. They have no consent whatsoever to seize my property, and they are keeping me against my will, and they are relying on the criminal conduct of West Valley Jail. And they have no right whatsoever to keep me against my will. And it is under the additional defamatory act of a 5150, lying, okay, literally lying, and all that I documented is on the cameras inside of Area 9 and Area 15, where they, again, release me after I'm holding up a sign speaking to the fact that Kara Hudson, Misha Moss, engaging in a fictitious prosecution on October 14th, on November 6th, and how I literally sat in jail. Kara Hudson stating that on October 14th, where I was being monitored in the court at Rancho Cucamonga Courthouse, stating that there was a doubt declaration and that she would release me from jail if I were to speak to a psychologist, which again, I'm going to refuse to do that. I am forcing this public entity in every way in order for purposes of documenting how a public entity engages in this criminal system, because this is what this is relevant to, exposing the pattern of conduct by a public entity engaged in the system of federal group stalking and monitoring. This is criminal obstruction. Criminal obstruction is the pattern of conduct. It is within the pattern of conduct. This is what the public entity does in order to insulate and conceal its engagement in that criminal system. Criminal defamation is what it relies on, seeking to criminally engage in, not only while they're monitoring you, but engage in manufacturing information, names, information, hearings, in order to place you, ultimately take your liberty and place you in a mental ward. This is to render illegitimate your documentation, the fact that you are exposing, the fact that you were exposed to, this is to render illegitimate any claims that you have and documentation of that public entity that is monitoring you. That's the purpose of that. Okay, and I am showing how the state acts criminally to engage in that and to achieve that criminal result. I have been kidnapped on more than one occasion, and these are the devices that state uses. Okay. The denial of a trial, kidnapped by Lisa Rogan on February 18th, citing a fake warrant and a fictitious prosecution where I never received a trial. That is Ontario Police on September 25th, seeking to have me, force me, that's a manner of trying to force me to sign a citation, which I'm not going to do, and then they keep me subject to kidnapping from September 25th, and then they transport me to the courthouse October 14th. Okay. Not only was I subject to kidnapping on September 25th, September 28th on camera, the deputy comes and tries to have me go to video court for arraignment. Do you understand how seeking to force me to sign the citation for PC 148A1, which I was arrested on January 13th, it has already been quote unquote litigated and I never got a trial. Do you understand how seeking to have me go to arraignment court in the same case where you are citing some warrant in a fictitious prosecution that has already been quote unquote litigated? You're citing a warrant, but yet you're sending me to arraignment court. I kept that documentation. I did not go to arraignment court. This is more evidence of the fact that it is a fictitious prosecution. Okay, and this is documented on the facility cameras while I was kidnapped. All right. And I also have that documentation. I have it in my own hands, but it's also documented inside of the facility. Everything that was engaged in is visible on the cameras. I am providing context as to the criminal activity, as to what you are looking at on those facility cameras. And let me be clear, where the state is engaged in kidnapping the targeted individual, that is all documentation that belongs to that targeted individual. And under facts of kidnapping by that public entity, that alone is establishing the pattern of conduct, period. Okay. Kidnapping is a whole other exacerbation of the pattern of conduct and the criminal conduct of that public entity. And so you have them seeking to force me to sign a citation. You have them bringing the citation to me written in ink. I didn't have a pen in jail. Okay. The male deputy is on camera while I'm in unit 9 C7 coming to the cell, bringing me, you want to go to, you have to go to, a video court today to arraign me in MWV 2000640, where Ontario Police on September 25th arrested me, stating that they had a warrant to arrest me in this case where I never got a trial. Okay, where they bring me to West Valley merely to sign a citation where it's already been litigated and I never got a trial, and I was thrown ultimately into a mental ward and released in the middle of the night. Okay, this is a fictitious prosecution. All right, Laura Alvarez, the public defender, emailing me about trial the day before it was supposed to come, and it did not happen. Lisa Rogan immediately states that I'm being taken into custody. There was no conversation about anything. At the moment I walk in the court, she is engaged in immediately summarily taking me into custody and stating that she's having me committed. Okay? This is a fictitious prosecution, and this is the criminal conduct of the state by the police, by the jail, by the courts. And so what you have today is Tracy Banks engaged in monitoring me. Again, leaving with her on the cameras at Ontario Town Square at 5:45, arriving at Rite Aid at or around 6:55 to 6 p.m., monitoring the entire time, exiting that venue at Rite Aid, walking across the parking lot to the smoke shop, and as Ontario police are sitting in alignment to me as they remain in relevant position while I'm inside of the store, by the way, but I just want to speak to the simultaneity of conduct. This is Federal Group Stalking and Monitoring. This is P.O.C. And Tracy Banks is monitoring me, okay? So while we walk out of the smoke shop, Ontario police sounding their sirens for 2 seconds while they're sitting at the traffic light, while third parties are creating light activity in the parking lot. Tracy Banks is walking next to me, monitoring me in concert with the third parties and with the state that is also flying over the parking lot in airplanes. And then when when she is driving me, and she's going to be on traffic cameras driving south on Euclid Avenue and then turning east onto Holt Boulevard, while we are engaged in a verbal argument, because she then engages in what is legally a threat by a third party, speaking to the fact that Misha Moss called her another state actor engaging in a fictitious prosecution, stating the fact that I have a court hearing on January 4th in a fake case after October 14th, where Kara Hudson stated that she was going to have a 1398 trial, where this is a trial where and again, this is all criminal conduct in the court, where they're going to hold a hearing seeking to establish whether I am able to withstand a trial in the PC 148A1 charge for obstruction of arrest, where I was arrested on January 13th and where I was never given a trial, okay? And upon the criminal act of Lisa Rogan. Understand what this is. This is the court system that is engaged in criminal activity, also seeking to try to make procedural sense out of the blatant criminal conduct of Lisa Rogan. That is the court, the Rancho Cucamonga courthouse, and you cannot make any procedural sense out of it. I was literally kidnapped and taken into jail, and they engaging in that criminal activity, say, oh, well, there was a doubt declaration. There was no such doubt declaration. Kyle Brody set trial on February 14th for February 18th. I arrive for trial. I immediately am taken into custody. That is being kidnapped while I'm monitored by the state, and subject to monitoring the entire time I remain kidnapped, okay? On October 14th, while I'm kidnapped, she sets this 1368 trial for November 6th. And again, that never occurs. Okay, so not only are they engaged in a fictitious prosecution, it is criminal defamation. All right. They are engaged in an ongoing pattern of conduct of criminal obstruction. This is via the courts. This is the court's engagement in the P.O.C. And November 6th, this 1368 trial never occurs. I am denied the right to speak to the judge. They keep me in the cell while the black female, she is a deputy wearing the name tag. That does not mean that that is her name, but she is a black female wearing the name tag Waddy. Waddy. She is monitoring on the cameras in the court and on the cameras inside of the cell area adjacent outside of the courtroom. She's engaging in relevant positions. She's monitoring me in concert with all of them in the court. Okay, I'm subject to ongoing monitoring while I am kidnapped, while I'm being transferred to and from the court. The state stalking by aircraft, the state stalking by police while I'm transported to and from the court. It is ongoing P.O.C. and it is P.O.C. of criminal obstruction via the courts through this entertainment of a fictitious prosecution. October 14th, setting this trial date, this ongoing criminal defamation by the court. And this is in a fictitious prosecution where I never got a trial, okay? I'm speaking this and I'm repeating this because you need to understand how it goes from this ongoing criminal conduct in the court system, and how all of those facts are related up to the present, and this ongoing threat by the state that's engaged in ceaseless monitoring and ongoing criminal obstruction of the fact that they are monitoring. Okay, and this is November 6th, where I'm denied the right to speak to the judge. They literally keep me in the cell. I am on the cameras in Department 17, holding up documentation, speaking to the fact that I am being monitored on that day, that it is an ongoing kidnapping, that there is no real case. I am on the cameras inside of that court. Kara Hudson is engaged in monitoring me. She's engaged in kidnapping, and she's engaged in criminal defamation via the court system. That trial, that 1368 trial, never happens on November 6th. I'm literally taken to the court. I'm subject to ongoing monitoring while in that court, and I am literally taken there and then taken back to the West Valley Detention Center, stating off the record, again, they're not holding any fake court hearing on this date. They're just stating off the record, oh, we're not going to hold a 1368 trial. This is Rosa Ayala, an attorney whose bar number I do not have on hand. She's on cameras inside of that courthouse, Department 17. Engaging in monitoring me and criminal obstruction and kidnapping, while she is stating that, oh, we're not going to have the 1368 trial because Misha Moss wrote in the notes, okay, did not state in any court hearing, is not zealously advocating on my behalf. This is intentional withholding of zealous advocacy on the part of the targeted individual who was subject to the pattern of conduct of monitoring with communication device by the public entity. She is directly acting on behalf of that public entity. Misha Moss, bar number 297372. She is engaged in the P.O.C, monitoring me, and also engaged in criminal obstruction through the court system. All right, using her bar license to engage in criminal activity in concert with Kara Hudson. Okay, that trial never happens on November 6th. I don't even step foot in the courtroom. I'm literally held in the cell outside of the courtroom. I am on the cameras. I use the cameras for documentation. And they state that, okay, we're going to return in 10 days for trial. For trial in the PC 148A1 charge that I was never given a trial on February 18th. And I am again stating to them, how are you going to have a trial? We're talking over 9 months after I was arrested. You're talking well after February 18th, where I never waived my right to a trial in a misdemeanor charge, which again is a fictitious prosecution. But this is how they're not even abiding by the laws, and while they're engaging in this fictitious prosecution, they're not even abiding by my constitutional rights in any way. All right, and this is just a going with their own criminal activity in the court system. Okay, that is not the legal process whatsoever. And Rosa Ayala, and then Misha Moss, who was absent. Okay, and then she arrives, quote unquote, after lunch to engage in monitoring and to engage in ongoing criminal obstruction. Does not provide me any information about what's going on November 6th, why I'm not having a hearing on that day. She's engaged in monitoring in concert with the deputies. She's engaged in monitoring me with the in the court, that's on the cameras inside of Department 17. It is ongoing P.O.C, and she is also engaged in the ongoing pattern by the, this is the pattern of conduct by the officers of the court, the intentional withholding of zealous advocacy on the part of the targeted individual, the blatant violation of their duties owed as attorneys to the targeted individual. This is intentional conduct, and it is not a matter of civil case. This is under the pattern of conduct of ongoing criminal monitoring. So this is ratcheted up under criminal obstruction. This is what SIIS legislation is designed to address, because this is how a public entity engages in criminal obstruction of justice, seeking to conceal the fact that it is monitoring an American citizen, that is documenting and seeking to prosecute that public entity. They engage in intentionally not representing your interests. They engage in intentionally entertaining fictitious prosecutions. They engage in criminal facilitation of the police officers' criminal conduct of kidnapping and false allegations, and that is transferred into the court system. And so Misha Moss does not communicate anything with me whatsoever. And not only that, she's hostile while denying me any information. Okay, a blatant refusal to engage in what is her duty as an officer of the court, owed to me as the quote unquote public defender in this fictitious prosecution that she is fully engaged in participating in. Okay, and this is documented criminal conduct with Kara Hudson, by the way. And so this is, I'm taken November 6th, I'm taken back to jail, and I remain in jail. 10 days later, there is no trial in the PC 148A1. I remain subject to an ongoing kidnapping This is when I am taken on November 13th in an entirely different case for a municipal code violation, which turned into a warrant because I was subject to an ongoing kidnapping where I am basically seized. I'm robbed of my right to respond to that citation because you don't have to go to a trial. You can respond to that citation in another manner. But because I was subject to kidnapping, they capitalized on that. And Arthur Benny, who refused to give me his name. I'm provided this name by the deputy, the black female with the name badge on, Waddy, W-A-D-D-Y, secondhand, because quote unquote Arthur Benny refuses to give me his name in the courtroom. He is present, engaging in P.O.C, monitoring me in the court. They're taking me from West Valley in this separate case while I'm subject to ongoing kidnapping in NWV 2000640. I am not in court on that case. I am in court for this municipal code violation. And this is absolutely distinct and separate and irrelevant to the ongoing criminal kidnapping inside of West Valley in a mental ward. Okay, so Misha Moss, not only does she she's engaged in monitoring me, she's engaged in kidnapping, she's engaged in criminal obstruction. That's what this is. She leaves me in jail. Okay, she is in no way doing her duty whatsoever. This is criminal obstruction. Does not communicate with me in the case. States that we're going to have a trial. Oh, no, I'm sorry. She doesn't even state that. Rosa Ayala is the one that stated that. But then she does not. I asked Misha Moss directly on November 6th, what's going on with the case? What's going to happen? She only states, oh, well, 10 days we're going to have a trial. And she doesn't communicate anything else with me. I'm asking her, what are you talking about a trial? It's a fake case. I didn't get a trial on February 18th. I never waived that. What are you even talking about? And she refuses to communicate. It's criminal activity. They're not going to, what are they going to elaborate on? Okay. And not only that, she's engaged in monitoring, and all of this is on camera, okay? And this is not the legal process, by the way. You cannot engage in holding some criminal case over an alleged defendant for an indefinite amount of time for absolutely no reason. And you are, on top of the fact that you're engaged in naming fake officers, or a fake lawyer. F. Ramos is not a real person, okay? And Shannon Faherty, Kyle Brody, Kimberly Appaloo engaging in this conduct, never getting a trial on February 18th, okay? Dragging this all the way up to November 6th, stating I'm going to have a trial in this case 10 days later, and this never happens. They take me to court on November 13th from West Valley to Rancho Cucamonga Courthouse, and this is for an entirely different case, for a municipal code violation, sleeping at the museum. Let's be clear, the state is monitoring me. Stalking, I have substantial documentation of the state engaged in P.O.C. at the museum. Okay, the Ontario police engaged in kidnapping me on that day where they cite me, and this is a means of P.O.C., by the way. There is no reasonable suspicion. There is no probable cause. The state is monitoring me. And that was P.O.C., this municipal code, which was form for their engaging in. And by form, I mean this was the outward appearance, the guise under which they're engaged in not only harassment, intimidation, and criminal threats, while I am documenting the public entity engaged in federal group stalking and monitoring. They're engaged in monitoring me and kidnapping me from the museum, where all they had the right to do was take my license and cite me right there at the museum and tell me go on my way. But why would you even engage in harassing somebody who's homeless, sleeping? And I'm not damaging any property. This is P.O.C. And they were turning their body cams on and off, and while they're engaging in harassing, which is escalating the situation so they can have some appearance. Well, we arrested her because she's not abiding by my request to give my ID, which is not what happened at all. They're turning their body cameras on and off while they begin yelling and harassing me, and then they engage in harassing when I tell them my name and I prepare to pull out my identification card. This is Ontario Police, okay, heavily documented, engaged in P.O.C., and it was P.O.C. when they called themselves citing me at the museum. And while I am subject to kidnapping inside of West Valley, this citation, which I would have been able to respond to in a timely manner, is additional form, so form for criminal conduct. So I'm taken to court on November 13th in this separate case. Again, this case that I'm kidnapped under is not addressed. I do not get a trial in that case within 10 days. Arthur Benny is engaged in monitoring, and I'm given this name by the deputy because this quote-unquote judge does not give me his name when I request it more than one time. That's also intentional, okay, seeking to conceal his identity, knowing that I'm documenting, and I'm using the cameras in that facility. This is P.O.C. What judge is going to refuse it? Why are you refusing your name? Okay, I'm asking what's your name, Judge, because I'm here not on MWV 200000640. So what am I here for? Okay, why are you holding me in jail in a mental ward indefinitely? Okay, from September 25th up until that date, November 13th. Have not been in a court hearing, not whatsoever. October 14th, all Kara Hudson did was set a trial date that never occurred on November 6th. They never had a 1368 trial. They're just holding me in jail because I will not abide by signing the citation. I'm not going to abide by speaking to some psychologist whereby they can have some something where I have conceded to the existence of this fictitious prosecution. No, you're going to engage in the criminal conduct. I'm going to document it from beginning to end. And that's what they are doing. And so I am remaining inside of West Valley Jail from November 6th, where I never get the trial 10 days later, like Rosa Ayala stated, like Misha Moss stated, and then totally ceased from communicating any further, because as I continue to point out the fact, how are you going to have a trial? They try to force me to sign a citation again. They try to arraign me on September 28th, when they're talking about they have a warrant. How are you going to have a trial? That's not how she doesn't want to talk about that. She doesn't want to talk at all. She's monitoring me, and she's engaged in harassment. She's hostile because I'm asking common sense questions. All right. She is a public defender engaged in P.O.C. She's going to federal prison. And she, with every other officer of the court, engaging in any capacity of this fictitious prosecution, because it is P.O.C. for the public entities engagement in federal group stalking and monitoring. And so while I am subject to ongoing kidnapping inside of West Valley, brought to court on February 13th for a municipal code violation, and he states that I'm going to return for the trial in this municipal code violation. Again, just sitting in a mental ward in jail indefinitely, and the purpose for which I was arrested, this criminal case, this fictitious prosecution, is not addressed. Okay, so not only do they not hold that trial, days later on, I believe it's November 18th, I'm taken back to the Rancho Cucamonga court, and they continue that case while I'm sitting in the jail subject to ongoing monitoring. They meaning the court, while I'm sitting in the cell underneath the court, they don't even bring me up to the courtroom. The deputies tell me word of mouth, oh, you're not having a court hearing today. You're going to return in January for a court hearing, while they're monitoring me. Okay. And this is while I'm in the cell creating a sign stating the fact that I'm kidnapped and subject to criminal defamation. The state knows what I'm doing. They avoided taking me upstairs to the courtroom where I would use the cameras to document. They literally usher me out of that court and never letting me up to the courtroom, never giving me a right to see the judge in what was a supposedly set hearing for this municipal code violation, and set it for January, which again, having every intention to keep me subject to kidnapping in a separate criminal case, stating a warrant in this municipal code case. Okay. So I'm brought back to West Valley. All right. This is them bringing in some separate violation, a municipal code violation, and keeping me in jail. And understand that municipal code violation has nothing to do with why I'm in jail. It's totally irrelevant. And it turned into a quote unquote warrant because I was subject to kidnapping, by the way. Okay. And by the way, that municipal code violation is P.O.C. The state is monitoring me. They know exactly where I'm sleeping. They know everywhere I'm going. They're listening to every word that I am uttering. This is ongoing federal group stalking and monitoring. Okay, and the officers engaged in P.O.C. when they kidnapped me that day, citing me for that municipal code violation, sleeping at the museum, engaged in monitoring on the cameras inside of the Ontario Police Department. The state's fake sun directly over the Ontario Police Department. The state flying over that plaza where the Ontario Police Department is off of Archibald. The state stalking. And also the third parties. I remained in that parking, in that shopping plaza, using the cameras, documenting P.O.C. while I remained there, by the way. And they engaged in taking me off of the museum grounds on purpose to get me out of this area. They literally take me from the museum and drop me off at the Ontario Police Department so that I would not have a way to get back to where they kidnapped me from, Ontario Museum. I literally had to walk from the Ontario Police Department back to where I was, where I remain over here by the Holt and Euclid area off of Euclid Avenue and Holt Boulevard at the museum, the Ontario Museum of History and Art, where the state knows where I'm at and is monitoring me 24 hours a day, ceaselessly, which I am publishing, showing concrete fact of on a daily basis. So I just want to get to this case. This municipal code violation turned into a warrant, and I'm just sitting in jail indefinitely. So when I create this sign, this large sign that you can see from my cell in 15C7, I believe, I'm on the facility cameras, and I'm holding up the fact that I am kidnapped and I'm subject to criminal defamation. And Kara Hudson and Misha Moss are engaged in entertaining a fake case, which is a false charge that I never got a trial in. Okay, they've already done this before, and they did it again, keeping me in jail, having no legal right to do so, while they're monitoring me inside of the jail. Okay, and so I am released on December 4th. And this is when I'm brought to Arrowhead Regional Medical Center, West Valley, engaging in an additional act of defamation, 5150, stating that I'm attacking deputies, which would be on the cameras, by the way, inside of the facility on that day when they released me. You 5150'd me on December 4th for absolutely no reason, because I refused to get up and speak to the medical worker. They're all monitoring me. I'm laying in my bed, and I don't entertain them. I don't communicate with them. They're all monitoring, and I documented that inside of the facility. And so because I do not get up out of my bed, he threatens me. Oh, if you don't get up out of your bed, I mean, we're going to release you, but if you don't get up and talk to me, then I'm going to 5150 you. By the way, that is not the grounds for a 5150. And not only is that not grounds for a 5150, it's audible activity while they are monitoring me. And in addition to that, that is defamation, okay? And this is that which Arrowhead Regional Medical Center is relying on, stating this man stating that he's going to 5150 me for not talking to him, is stating on this documentation for 5150 classification that I'm attacking the deputy. And this did not happen. This did not happen, that I'm spitting on the deputies. This did not happen. And this is that which also would be documented on the facility cameras. This did not happen on December 4th. This is what he's stating. And this is what Arrowhead Regional Medical Center is stating they're citing as their grounds for holding me. Okay. And again, West Valley comes out of the blue after I'm holding up my signs, stating the fact that I'm kidnapped, stating names, I'm dropping names, and the fact that they're engaged in criminal conduct. And then December 4th, they come to the cell. Oh, great, we're going to release you. You're getting released. If you don't talk to me, I'm going to 5150 you. They 5150 me, take me to Arrowhead Regional Medical Center. Arrowhead Regional is saying, oh, well, you were 5150 because you attacked a deputy, which I did not, because I'm spitting on deputies, which I did not. And also that would be evidenced on the facility cameras, which I thoroughly used every day and night to document the P.O.C. because I was subject to ongoing monitoring. And while Arrowhead kept me there, monitoring me the entire way. So I am released. Again, there is no court date. What they give me as I'm released from being kidnapped is a citation stating the case number. It doesn't even say PC1. They literally just gave me a copy that I refused to sign again. And that's the reason why they took me in jail on September 25th. Because I refused to sign the citation. I didn't sign it on December 4th either, because it's not a real case, and I'm not going to sign it after you're already talking about you have a warrant in this case, after I've already been subject to arraignment, a pre-trial, trial readiness conference, and a set trial date, which I was denied on February 18th. So why are you giving me a citation upon being released from kidnapping on December 4th? This is an entirely fake case, okay? That's why they gave me a citation stating the case number and seeking to have me go to court. I just want you to understand how that is in direct conflict with having a warrant. That's in direct conflict with an existing criminal case. That is not how the legal process works whatsoever. This is the same system, the criminal activity by the jail, and seeking to release me, quote unquote, release me, after I am again exposing the fact that they are illegally kidnapping me and engaged in criminal defamation, placing me in a mental ward. And this is upon merely documenting this public entity engaged in federal group stalking and monitoring. It's criminal obstruction. And so Arrowhead Regional Medical Center releases me, and this is up to date. So I'm constantly documenting. Today on September, I go through that because it's relevant context with regard to what a third party is speaking. A third party is in the shoes of the government. This is how the state monitors you in any private residence. This is how the state monitors you inside of any third party facilitating venue. It is monitoring you through the vicarious stalking presence in your path by third parties. That is the people of the state of California. And that is what Tracy Banks represents, as she is in her car threatening me. That's what that is legally representing, stating that I have a court date in this fictitious prosecution that I never got a trial in, that the police are stating that they have a warrant, that are merely to try to force me to sign a citation. And upon refusal to sign that citation on September 25th, they're cutting off my clothes off camera, placing me in handcuffs to cut off my clothes and placing me back in a mental ward where they keep me indefinitely, trying to arraign me in this case where they're claiming this warrant. And all of this is in conflict with having a warrant, with having a case, all while I never had a trial on February 18th, which is the 30th day that I never waived whatsoever. Okay, this is rampant criminal activity by the state that is monitoring me. Tracy Banks in her car as she is driving east on Hope Boulevard and stopping to turn north onto B Street. Ontario police on camera at the intersection of Plum and Hope Boulevard, lights on the vehicles, all ongoing audible activity while she's monitoring me in the car. And I'm stating the fact that everything that she is saying is legally relevant. She's a third party who's monitoring me and also engaging and threatening me on behalf of that state, and entertaining a fictitious prosecution. And the state that is engaged in ongoing kidnapping conduct, as I go to court, they engage in kidnapping conduct. That's a threat by a third party that's monitoring me. All right. And using a fictitious prosecution to engage in criminal conduct. Kidnapping and ongoing monitoring inside of their facility. That is the jail. That's a state facility. That's a state facilitating venue. And the words coming out of her mouth are not only monitoring me, but they are also threatening me. And this is while Ontario police are in relevant position creating light activity as she's crossing path, driving in her car from Hope Boulevard onto B Street. Ontario police also, and be clear, while we're leaving the plaza at Euclid and Holt, Ontario police at the traffic light sounding their sirens as we're walking out, state flying over. As we're driving on from Holt Boulevard onto B Street, where I get out of the car, because I'm telling her I do not care any of the nonsense that she's speaking to. She's engaging in that same criminal conduct she did on February 18th, monitoring me, acting in concert with the court, with the system as she's monitoring me, fictitious prosecution and kidnapping and criminal obstruction in that courtroom on February 18th. By her mentioning that, speaking a threat to me, that's what she's doing while she's monitoring me. She's doing the exact same thing today on December 23rd, while the police are directly less than 20 feet in front at Plum and Holt, using their lights in relevant position while there's ongoing audible activity, meaning we're having a verbal exchange. A heated verbal exchange, because I'm telling her, I do not care that Misha Moss called you. Misha Moss is a criminal. She's engaging in a fictitious case, a literal fake case, trying to force me to go to court and in a case that is not real, for them to engage in kidnapping again. That's all there is. I'm not going to concede to the criminal activity of the court, of the police, and of the jail. I'm not going to do it. They're going to have to engage in kidnapping again. And I'm going to engage in, document my I'm going to engage in publishing my ongoing documentation. This prolonged recitation of P.O.C. from January 13th up to the present is to speak to today what the substance of what she is stating. She is a third party that is monitoring me. And again, my documentation that I published on December 20th. Yeah. I'm in her car. She's monitoring me the entire way. The state's fake sun everywhere, directly above as we're at Dick's Sporting Goods, as we're at Target, as we're in front of Ulta, as we are at Bath and Body Works, inside of the Colonies Crossroads Plaza, where the state's fake sun, in front of Walmart, in all of its essence. And then 24 hours later, I documented the ongoing federal group stalking and monitoring pattern of conduct, documenting the state's fake sun object in positions directly above me, mutually exclusive to that which I documented just 24 hours prior. I continue to document what is the pattern of conduct by this state. She is monitoring me on December 20th. She is monitoring me today. It doesn't matter that she's giving me money. It does not matter that she's offering to buy me food. It doesn't matter that she takes me to Rite Aid so that I can go to the store. She is monitoring me. And in addition to that, she is waging a threat, communicating on behalf of that state that is engaging in an ongoing threat via the courts and the police, who are engaged in monitoring me, and fictitious prosecution to engage in criminal obstruction of justice to prevent its own prosecution, its ongoing being documented as engaging in monitoring me. That's what she is speaking, and that's the legal relevance of what she was stating while it was audible activity in Ontario Police present at Euclid Avenue and Holt as I'm with her, and Ontario Police at Plum and Holt while I'm in her car and she's threatening me and monitoring me as I get out. Okay, it's P.O.C. And that's what I want to, that's why I had to go through that whole recitation, because there's relevance there. There's history with regard to this case that she is speaking of, stating that Misha Moss, a criminal, is calling her, communicating with her. I have not provided, Misha Moss did not even communicate with me while I was subject to kidnapping inside of the jail. She did not communicate with me while I was at the court. She did not do anything about the fact that I was subject to an indefinite kidnapping, because that's what it is when a public entity is monitoring you and seeking to obstruct justice. That's a kidnapping. Okay, that exceeds a mere false arrest under the facts, under the establishment of the pattern of conduct of federal group stalking and monitoring. And that's what SIIS legislation is designed to address. And in addition to the fact that there are currently in violation of 18 U.S.C. section 42A. Okay, but Misha Moss didn't want to communicate with me then, and now all of a sudden she's calling Tracy Banks and updating her. Oh, she needs to be at court because she has a court date on January 4th, when I was supposed to have a court date according to Rosa Ayala and according to Misha Moss on November 6th, stating that I was supposed to have a trial 10 days after the 6th, which should have been November 16th. That didn't happen either. I sat in jail indefinitely until I started holding up a large sign stating the fact that I am subject to ongoing kidnapping, criminal defamation, and demonstrating, showing, documenting on the facility cameras how they are monitoring in the jail. How it is not actual sunlight that is being directed inside of the depths of the unit where I was kept in the mental ward. I'm literally pointing out P.O.C. And this is when West Valley releases me to Arrowhead Regional Medical Center under a defamatory basis, a defamatory classification, seeking to conceal in the way that they did on April 2020, where they removed me from 15D, the mental ward, into isolation after I was attacked, because I am documenting on the facility cameras, seeking to conceal and obstruct my documentation on the facility cameras. So I'm released. They give me a citation, just putting NWV 200000640 on the citation that I originally refused to sign. And it is a fictitious prosecution. That's why they tried to arraign me on September 28th. That's why they tried to force me to sign a citation again upon kidnapping me on September 25th. Tracy Banks is waging a threat on behalf of the state while she's monitoring me in Ontario Police, our feet in front, lights on the vehicles at Plum and Hope Boulevard. That is P.O.C. And this is federal group stalking and monitoring. And this is criminal obstruction by the jails. This is criminal obstruction by the police. This is criminal obstruction by the court system. All right. There is no court date with regard. There is no court case with regard to PC 148A1, where I should have got a trial on February 18th. And Lisa Rogan engaged in kidnapping me, and I sat in jail. And then I was criminally defamed, placed into a mental ward, having no right to do so whatsoever. That's the pattern of conduct. Okay. And there is no existing court case now. The state seeks to engage in kidnapping and criminal activity, and I'm not going to entertain that criminal activity. This is documentation of the state's engagement in that ongoing criminal activity and using a third-party group stalker to, by word of mouth, representing a threat. Okay, the court represents a direct threat. The police represent a direct threat. The jail system represents a direct threat, in the ways that I have already documented, in the ways that I've recited in this very long recitation of P.O.C. But I need to make sure that I expound upon the legal significance of the words coming out of the mouth of a third-party group stalker that is monitoring me with that audible activity, which is substantively criminal obstruction, the threats stated on behalf of that public entity that is monitoring. It is currently 9:20 p.m., and what you've heard in the background is the amplification of sirens, the amplification of plane engines, the amplification of the train. The state is monitoring me as I am publishing documentation about its criminal activity. It is 9:20 p.m. I am still at the same bench in between the senior center, right by the Ontario Library, and the residential apartments directly behind me. It is 9:21 p.m. and that's P.O.C.